Awesome. All right. Well, hello, and thank you for joining us for our September 2024 Lunch and Learn. I am Jenna Klinner. I'm the service coordinator for the WiscWeb team, and I'm joined here today by several members of the team as well, including Matt. Hi, Matt. Here's our agenda for the day. It's pretty light today. First, we're just going to run through a few reminders, and then I'll give you a little Gutenberg update. And then Matt's going to give you a little demo about Kaltura embeds. And then we have time if anyone has questions. Sounds like we're going to do some troubleshooting on a site after this, and you can hang around for that and ask questions as well. So the first thing here is just reminders. I'll open the floor for Matt, but I think that generally we're just reminding folks to keep your contact list up to date. Maybe take this time, start a semester to review a little bit and remove anyone who's no longer with your group, and make sure if you can that you have a primary contact designated. That's so helpful for us. So I'll just kind of open the floor for Matt in case there's anything else you wanted to mention there.
No, I guess I added the whole adding users to your site part of it, mainly from a standpoint of um, I update our mailing list on a monthly basis to add users who have been added since our previous Lunch and Learn. And I often find, I shouldn't say often, that overstates it a little bit. I will find from time to time that users are added when you go through the add by NetID, people are accidentally adding NetID at wis.edu, which in
Yes, good point.
turn doesn't create an account for them. It actually creates a broken account for them because they can't log in with a NetID because it's NetID at wis.edu. So then in the email, it says, so for example, it might say mbgoins at wis.edu at wis, or mbgoins at wis.edu, wis.edu, because we automatically append the email address to a user when you are adding them via NetID. So just, and again, I don't know if this is the audience that I need to stress this to, but in the recording, hopefully somebody will see it after the fact. But yeah, make sure you, when you're doing add by NetID, you just add their NetID. You don't add the @wisc.edu value in there. So
Really good
just a
point.
strong reminder there.
We actually have had a couple support requests recently for this very issue where folks are trying to log in and they're like, I don't have access, and it's because they were added with their NetID email address rather than just the NetID. So good reminder. I also wanted to give a little reminder. We talk about this periodically. I think it's just helpful, again, start of semester as you're adding new content. Just a reminder that WiscWeb is not intended for hosting sensitive, restricted data. And that is sort of a confusing um, designation, knowing kind of what is and is not considered sensitive restricted. And we can try to help with that. So if you have questions, please reach out. And if we don't know, we can work with data stewards and or cybersecurity to kind of make a call. But essentially, there's just certain types of data that shouldn't be stored in WiscWeb. And the most common way that we see that coming in is through Gravity forms, where folks are having form fields that prompt for data that might be considered sensitive restricted. A really good note is like consider forms that might be targeted for students. If you're asking questions that seem a little bit more personal in nature, that's a good reason why you wouldn't necessarily want to store that data in WiscWeb. We can help point you to other tools that might be more appropriate for that. So just a reminder there, you do get a notification. I think it's like every 6 months now or something like that, where you need to confirm that you're not using Gravity Forms for that purpose. But I am just noticing that it's hard to sort of uh, differentiate between what is, regular data versus sensitive restricted. And if you have any questions, we'd prefer you reach out so that we can make sure um, that data is going into an appropriate tool. Yes, and as David noted, Qualtrics is a good alternative for certain things, certain types of data that might not be suited for WiscWeb.
I still don't
Um,
know that. I still don't know that
yeah,
Qualtrics is okay for sensitive or restricted data.
I think it depends
So
on the type of data, but
so
that's
I
why it
I
kind of it
agree, and
helps.
yet.
Yes, I do think this is very nuanced, and I can understand where things are very confusing for folks. That's where it's helpful to open a conversation. We would need to look at what the data is. We might need a data steward to make a call, and then based on that call, there would be like a recommended tool for that data. It might be that it could be hosted in WiscWeb, but it might be something that should be in Qualtrics or Google Forms or elsewhere, depending on what it is. I know that's not the most defined answer, and that's just because it really depends on the data. And within the same form, you might have something that is maybe like PHI, and you might have something that is HIPAA, and those might be two different ways of handling it. And then my final reminder here is just office hours. So we do offer one-on-one time during office hours. A number of you are already attending those and taking that opportunity, but just a reminder that that exists. And if you are troubleshooting something that you're not sure about, or it's maybe a little bit tricky to explain in an email, you can schedule time in office hours for that. Matt, would you be able to drop a link in the chat to the office hours? He's working on it. But yes, it's just a link on our site and it allows you to schedule that. It'll put it on our calendar, it'll put it on your calendar, and then you can meet with someone one-on-one. And there's that link in the chat. It's located on our website. Um, that's all I got for reminders. I'll pause a little bit just in case there's questions on any of those.
I actually had one more thing that I wanted to touch on.
Yes,
It's sort of building on what Logan said earlier about the reminder of removing retired staff member, etc. I'm going to take the share from you
go ahead.
and replace it, because one of the things that I do want users to um, be aware of, or admins, I guess I should say, is you can always go into your site, and as an admin, you can look at the user last login column over here and see who you've added that has not ever logged in, or when was the last time that they did log in. So this is a good way for you to manage whether or not people actually are logging into your site and making use of it. I unfortunately cannot proceed with my purge, which I would love to do, to just remove people who haven't logged into the service in X number of years. Um, but you, as the admins of your site, absolutely can purge people from your list, your user list, if they do not need to be in there. And again, I say this twofold, really. One is it keeps your users list nice and tight and easy to manage, but also it is a security risk for you to allow people to still have access to your site when they shouldn't, because they could still log in and access the content and update and things of that nature. Again, you hope for the best in everyone, but to maintain the security of your own content, remove people who should not be allowed access to editing that content. So again, I just want to beat that drum quite a bit, because, and we strongly recommend this every start of an academic year, or start of a school year, I should say, because we have so many new sites coming on, so many new editors coming on, so many sites getting handed over to new people, that it's just important to make sure that you're managing who's in your list and who has access to your sites. Okay, that being said, pages. Let me go back over to the chat just to have it open in case someone asks me a question. So I was gonna touch on the Kaltura thing that happened. So just to kind of recap for those of you who may not have paid attention, seen it, or it didn't really affect you in the broad scheme of things. At some point over the summer, Kaltura, the service, not so much UW-Madison, but the Kaltura service that we make use of, made a change to their O-embed functionality and how it was used within WordPress. Um, to the extent that when you used Kaltura videos in any of your 2-column layouts, or in some cases even in the 1-column layouts, but there were multiple videos in the list, the videos would just stop displaying. It would just be blank space. You wouldn't get any error. You wouldn't get anything. It would just not show up. So our Learn at UW team here at UW-Madison, they reacted to it because they started seeing some of these issues with other sites that exist on campus. And they went in and they made a change to our campus's OEmbed functionality within Kaltura so that bingo, bango, so when you share a video, and again, this is just kind of a reiteration of how you share a Kaltura video within your WordPress site as well. The video has to be published. I usually publish mine unlisted. That's just how I do it. But if you go to the share option when you're looking at your video and go to the OEmbed section, down at the bottom, there is an OEmbed player value that specifically says select this player for WordPress and Pressbooks OEmbed, but we care more about the WordPress aspect of it. I can make any of these changes to the player sizes if I want to, anything of that nature, but I need to make sure that I click this one so that the correct URL is used for that particular video. And so then once I grab that, I can go back on over to my testing. Add a column, a text block in, and just paste it in. And again, the way that WordPress works, the way that our embed functionality works is it automatically takes that OEmbed URL and embeds the content right into the text block, whatever text area that you're putting it into. Yes, yes, I'm a psych fan and I listen to a podcast about psych. No surprise, nerd. Yeah, I guess that's really it. That's all I wanted to touch on with this particular issue.
I think the biggest thing
Any,
is just that, like, if you were to go and try to copy the default URL that shows when you go in, it's not going to work. You literally have to go down, choose that player, which is the
yes.
change. And it was when they changed over from version two's player to version 7 that they saw
Oh,
that
thank you.
this interaction, and I think it's just for all WordPress sites. I don't think it's like
Nope.
necessarily a
It
campus
was.
specific thing. I think it's like
It wasn't just us. Yep.
version 7 just doesn't work with WordPress. So they built this for us so that you'll still have this ability to
Yeah.
embed, which is so sweet.
Yeah.
Shout
Props
out
to
to the
the.
folks. Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Absolutely.
Kaltura
The Learn
team
at
was just
UW team.
wonderful.
Yep.
So if you're noticing this, that's all you have to do is go and grab that new link and put that in, and then your videos will be showing. So in case
And
anyone stumbles across that.
yeah, unfortunately, this is not something that you can easily notice unless you actively go and look at the spots where you would have embedded these videos. Because again, like I said, there's no error message that appears. It just is a blank space. And so if you know you have used Kaltura to embed videos in your site, you just have to go in and make this update. It's not something that we can do. It's not something that can be done via Kaltura. It's an action that you have to take on your end to make those updates. Boom, 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 boom. Any questions about that? Righty. I don't know what else we got.
We're just gonna do a little Gutenberg update. So I can, if you just share that, yep,
There it is.
I can kind of walk through it. For those of you who are following along, I just wanted to give a little update on where we're at with Gutenberg in case it's interesting. Um, I just want to remind folks too that there is a bunch of information on the Udemy theme website for this. So that's kind of where we're posting a lot of info. Um, and I'll post that in the chat right now. But essentially, we have created our first few blocks in Gutenberg, and we are doing some team testing on those blocks, trying to make sure that we work out any bugs and consider, what we might need to train on for that. And we're just doing documentation and testing, and continuing to build. Um, the beta version of the Gutenberg theme is still targeted for February, and I wanted to make sure that two things were clear. Just because there will be a beta version put out hopefully in February, that does not mean that users would move to it right away. It means that we're going to be doing some user testing to make sure that we have accommodated everything that we needed to think about for that release, and also can, find and fix any bugs or accessibility barriers that are found during testing. Um, and as I said, Udemy theme website has more info. I dropped that link in the chat there, but on the Udemy theme website at the top, you can just see a link to Gutenberg transition information. And that's where we'll be kind of adding status updates and anything else that we think is important. We also are posting feedback and testing opportunities in the WordPress users group in Teams. So if you're not part of that, I'll grab that link for you. But that's a good place to join if you're not already in it, because that's where we'll kind of get your feedback on this process. Um, Communities of practice, and we want the WordPress user COP. I'm just going to put a link to this whole chunk of information. There you go. That kind of has some more information on that group, as well as a link to how to join that in Teams. Um, Shout out to Ketter Joyner. It looks like Ketter's here with us. She's been posting some great feedback opportunities already in that channel, and we'll continue to try to do that along the way, just so you can kind of give us more insight into how you're doing things in your sites, and that can help guide us in how we build out that future theme. Yeah, it looks like Ketter just posted in the chat. I was hoping to post again later today or tomorrow. So watch for another post from her coming soon. I'll pause there because I know that this Gutenberg thing is a little nebulous for folks, and I wanted to give the opportunity to ask questions if you have any. Not seeing anything
So
in the chat.
perhaps we
Oh,
could
go ahead.
review whether, how automated is going to be. Is it,
Yeah,
how does it,
migration.
whatever exists now, do we need to do something,
Yes,
or it
great
may come on
question.
the page? Yeah.
Yeah, so the question's kind of like, all right, we've got a site in WiscWeb right now. What would that migration look like? Some of this is still TBD, so please keep that in mind. We are currently building some of that migration tooling, but things are subject to change. Right now, we have sort of a step in our process is to build a path from the old like page element to whatever the new block for that is, so that it can kind of be mapped appropriately. There will be a step that you'll have to do on a page by page basis to kind of transition that. But we've also talked about opportunities for more of a site-wide transition. I think that's the piece that's a little bit more TBD. I don't want to share too much about that in case things will change a little bit, but just noting we're working hard to consider the user experience in that migration and make it as easy as possible for you. And we'll continue to try to build opportunities to make that very streamlined for you. That said, there will always be some manual migration that needs to happen, or some decisions that you'll need to make, because there's probably some things where it's like, well, you could do it this way, or you could do it this way, and we don't want to make those choices for you. In those cases, I think we'll try to create documentation guidance and do training where we can kind of work you through what that might look like. Any follow-up questions on that?
So I'll touch on what Adrian asked in the chat there, which is, will there be training, or will we just be using the KV? So we'll rely heavily on our documentation because honestly, it's just an easy way for us to point you in the right direction for a specific question you might have. It's just easier for us to say, go read this. But yeah, my plan is to definitely create some general trainings and some general informational opportunities to just walk people through what some processes might be. I guess that being said, we weren't going to talk about this yet, but it makes sense since it's a leading question anyway. Not starting next month, but next month is when I'm going to start planning things out in much greater depth. My plan is to offer several different listening sessions and obviously opportunities for you all to ask questions of walking people through how to use the generic block editor, not the UW theme that we're building, because we don't have a finalized or close to finalized theme. So I'm not going to be showing you anything that is UW theme related, but just the generic straight block editor in, I can't remember, it's like the 2024 like default theme that WordPress comes with. I'm going to start walking some I should say some users. I'm going to walk you all through what is Gutenberg? What is the block editor? What are the blocks that you should be paying attention to and that are probably going to be most prominent in your use? And then I'll go through the process of actually building some pages out based on existing WiscWeb site pages that exist amongst all of your sites. Because I want you to see what that process will look like using just the basic tools. And so that'll be part of the training. But then once we actually have a finalized UW theme for the block editor for Gutenberg, then we'll start to actually do some more training sessions, listening sessions, and actually walking through that process. The same is true for what Jean-Yves just asked, which is the whole migration process. We'll definitely offer trainings and guidance on that as well, because some of you might have some questions about like, well, what do I do now that I have migrated it in? What are my next steps and things like that. That's still stuff that we're working on, but we'll definitely make sure that we're not just, there you go, ta-da. That's just not going to help anybody, ourselves most notably, because you're going to have lots of questions. So we want to make sure that we don't leave you on an island through this process. So yeah, so next month is when next month's Lunch and Learn, I will go through what I think will be my proposed schedule for when these different listening sessions will occur. And then probably starting either late-ish October or into November is when I will start to offer those sessions. They'll be recorded, but they'll be there for people to take advantage of. And then I think as we get closer to next spring, I guess this is a conversation for Ketter, if she wants to jump in on this. I guess as we get close to what we refer to as MVP or a more finalized version, I'm not really sure what the hope or plan would be for how we want to demo some of those tools as well in our Lunch and Learns or in any listening sessions as well. I don't know that we have a plan, but we want to make sure that we show you actual, I guess, finalized or close to finalized products, rather than trying to show you things that could change over the next week or month or whatever. So
yes, there isn't a finalized plan yet. As Ketter said, we know we want to do that. We just need to discuss as a team. And also, I'm just noting shout out for the post about LinkedIn Learning. We are aware a lot of other universities do link out a lot to LinkedIn Learning through their transition process because it's such good training documentation. So I would imagine we'll also be supplementing with some of those links as well, just to kind of give more insight into how the block editor works. Other questions about Gutenberg? All right. Well, I think we could use this. I guess any other questions coming in about anything we discussed today? Otherwise, we'll pivot to troubleshooting. All right. Well, Matt, do you want to stop the recording here? And then we can open it up in case anyone has any um, troubleshooting they want to do. It looks like you're muted. There you go.
I am muted because I'm smart.